Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. We are part of Rotary International, 1.2 million members around the world, 36,000 clubs. Our club happens to be an online one, and not just online, it's asynchronous, which is a really interesting thing, and feel free to contact us if you're curious about what an online asynchronous club might look like. So, as Rotarians, we're interested in all sorts of things that have to do with service above self, Rotary's motto. Our club in particular has special interests in innovation, education, and entrepreneurship. And here in Silicon Valley, there are all kinds of cool questions that arise about sustainability, about the environmental impact of things we do, things like that. And we have with us today Linden Skjeie of the San Jose. Actually, I'm going to butcher the title, the San Jose Recycling Program. There's a better title for that. Is that right, Linden?
I'm with the San Jose Environmental Services Department, and I work on garbage and recycling outreach and education.
Which makes you the perfect person for a talk about complexities around recycling. We are excited to have you here, and I will hand it over to you for your presentation. So, Linden, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and nice to meet everybody. It's not often I get to talk to people on other continents and so forth, so this is a treat for me. And so maybe people are sort of wondering what's the big deal around garbage and recycling and so forth. And I think it has to do with one, people's standards of living around the world are increasing, and as those standards go up, they consume more stuff, and over time we move towards more and more disposables and fewer reusables. And so that means that we're generating more and more solid waste. And around the world, countries and cities have varying abilities to deal with that solid waste. And so we end up with problems of litter or pollution, water pollution, and so forth. And so what I've been doing in San Jose is trying to teach residents about what they need to do to make sure that the recyclables that they put in their recycling carts actually can get recycled. And this has come into greater relief with the pandemic, because in terms of the residential program, because with more and more people staying home and getting takeout and so forth, we've had a great increase in the amount of solid waste that people are putting in their garbage and recycling carts. At the same time, the volume of waste on the commercial side has gone down, and we've got a lot of single-use packaging waste that's going into our carts. And for many years, most of these materials have gone across the Pacific to buyers in China and other Asian countries, mostly China. And we weren't sending them materials that were very clean or very usable. And they finally cracked down on us around 2018 with a policy they called the China Sword, which basically said, thou shalt no longer send us your dirty recyclables. We don't want them. We can't use them. They're a solid waste issue for us. We're increasing our standards, and you're going to have to meet them if you're going to send those materials over here. And at the same time, the fossil fuel industry is sort of ramping up its production of plastics, because, that's one way to sort of make up for any reduction in sales of fossil fuels for energy or for cars and so forth. And so there's, and even there's more and more plastic production facilities coming online. And so, we anticipate that this could become a bigger and bigger issue. And then in San Jose, we also have a housing crisis. The cost of housing is high. And so there's portions of the city where there's a lot of people in each household. And what ends up happening is people use their recycling carts for overflow from their garbage carts. So that too can lead to contamination. So if we're going to maintain a viable recycling program, then it sort of starts with us as residents and what we put in our recycling carts. We need to put actual recyclables in there, and we need them to be clean. So that's my spiel on the first slide. If I could have the second slide, that would be great. So I'm just briefly going to go through this. I mean, the main things about why recycling is important is, one, it saves landfill space. So if those materials aren't going into the landfill, then the landfill can last longer. And if you're using those recyclables again, like aluminum or paper or plastic, then you're not using the energy and generating the greenhouse gases that it takes to turn the virgin materials into those usable materials. And when you recycle them, it takes less energy as well. And then it generates jobs, and it reduces pollution, and it especially reduces litter. And so in California, we've put together a lot of different laws that are designed to encourage or mandate recycling of, in general, and then specific things as well. So in support of this, the city created a zero waste goal in 2007, 2008, and we defined zero waste as diverting 90% of the materials that people put out on the curb. And we can move on now. I've already talked about the recycling markets and the China sword. So this is just a slide of some of the major solid waste regulations. We had AB 939 back in 1989 to mandate recycling. And then we've had other ones that have come up since to mandate commercial recycling, organics, diversion, things like that. So next slide. So our main strategies for achieving zero waste, or this 90% diversion, are just to get people to send less to landfill on a per capita basis, because that's how the state gauges it, to make sure that our program is easy to use and that it doesn't cost people an arm and a leg, and then to also work on the other end to make sure that materials can be beneficially reused. So trying to make it so that more and more things do have an aftermarket value. Next slide. So in the top of this slide, it shows you what the set out used to be in San Jose. I don't know how well you can see that, but when I first moved to San Jose, it took me about 45 minutes a week just to figure out what bins to put things in, because there was one for newspapers, one for bottles, one for cans and plastic, and all this stuff. And then in 2002, we simplified things, as did many cities, with a single stream recycling process. So that means that you have the gray bin for all of your recyclables, and then the garbage bin. And you can put out used oil in San Jose, and yard trimmings and so forth. And in San Jose, there's two different material recovery facilities that these things go to. One is a dirty MRF where the garbage goes to, and one is a clean MRF where the recyclables go to. And this is a pretty robust system. And given that Rushton was saying that this would be an international group, I wrote to a friend of mine who has been living in Mali, because several years ago he wrote to me about what goes on in Mali. And I was going to show you some pictures that he sent me of what it looks like at the landfill in Mali, where people are picking through materials and diverting plastics and so forth, and taking them to market and selling them in the market. And then once a lot of that stuff is taken out, a lot of the leftover organics, which still has a lot of plastics in it, is then actually spread on crops, on fields, and used as sort of makeshift fertilizer. And so we're really blessed here that we have a system that takes care of a lot of that stuff. Can we go on to the next one? So this I thought was a pretty interesting slide. This is something that came across my desk in around 2018. And this shows the amount of plastic generated in different countries. So there's the top ones are 4 in Asia: China, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. And the very bottom one is the United States. And the green boxes show how many pounds of plastic waste are produced per person. So in China, you can see that annually they're saying that 97 pounds of plastic waste are produced per person. And then in contrast, in the United States, it's 270 pounds of plastic waste is produced per person. Then the sort of yellow beige boxes are how many pounds of that plastic are mismanaged. And then the blue boxes are how many pounds of that actually end up in the ocean. So this sort of illustrates how important it is to have good infrastructure, because the United States where we're producing 270 pounds of plastic waste per person, only about 2 pounds of that per person is ending up in the ocean. So that's 0.007% of that plastic, whereas in the Asian countries, it's more like 30% is ending up in the ocean. So I just thought that was a pretty striking, telling slide. Next one, please. So broadly speaking, these are the materials that you can put out in our system. So it's the metals, paper and cardboard, glass and plastic. We take all the plastics except for number 6, which is polystyrene. There's just not a good market for that. And expanded polystyrene is really tough to handle at the material recovery facilities, and it's a terrible litter problem and so forth. So I can talk more about this, the specifics of this later if you want, but I think we should probably move on to the next one. So this shows you the things we definitely don't want to have in the recycling cart. We used to take textiles, clothing and shoes and so forth, but there's not a good market for those materials now. And so if you can't donate those or repurpose them somehow, they need to go in the garbage cart. Hoses and hangers and so forth, as well as plastic bags, we consider to be tanglers. So those are the kinds of things that if they end up in a material recovery facility, they gum up the conveyor belts and the equipment and stop the whole thing, and they have to go in and wrestle those out of those conveyor belts. So those should never go in your recycling cart. Same with diapers and pet waste. And then the big one though is down here in the bottom left corner is food soiled items. So if you've got a pizza box that's got oil or tomato sauce or cheese or whatever on it, then that's considered food soiled and that item can't be recycled. If you've got a drink container that's still got beverage in it, then the beverage needs to be tossed out before that goes in your recycling cart. Basically, if you can empty and scrape food off of, say, a plastic item, then that would make it clean enough and you could recycle it. But otherwise, like one of those paper boats, if it's got food all over it, it needs to go in the garbage. So let's go on to the next one. So here's how you recycle clean. Next one. So this is a nut butter jar that my daughter tossed out with nut butter still in it. And this is the kind of thing that could ooze out in your recycling cart and contaminate other items. So this is not clean enough to throw out. And if you go to the next one, this is our motto: no food, no liquid, no problem. So next one, please. So this one I've emptied and scraped out the peanut butter. And so now it's no longer a danger to the other items in the cart and you could throw this out. We're not encouraging people to rinse recyclables, especially during this drought. It's not necessary for things to be pristine. It's just necessary to make it so that whatever's left isn't going to contaminate the other items in your cart. Next one. So this one is clean enough as well. So anyway, a lot of people think that you have to have it pristine and you don't. So then next one. The other thing we want to make sure of is that people are not wish cycling, which is something that I've certainly been guilty of in the past, where I've had an item and I just hated the idea of it spending all eternity in the landfill. And so I put it in my recycling cart in hopes that they would figure out something to do with it. That's considered a contaminant at this point, and we want to encourage people not to put things in their cart unless they're sure that it can be recycled. So then how do you figure out if it's recyclable? Next slide. We've put together a handy dandy website called sanjoserecycles.org, and in it there's a dialog box you can put items in, and we've got 340 items now, I think, in the guide, and it'll tell you what you can do with them. So you can, question things like, where do I put floss? What do I do with polystyrene? I have this fire extinguisher. What about this toaster? Just all these different things. And if I'd been able to pull this up on my computer, then I would have taken you through it. But it's got information about our curbside recycling programs, our junk pickup program, blogs in case you want to learn more about what to do with the caps from bottles, or, you know, is this kind of paper recyclable? Is that kind of, and so forth. So it's a really great resource, and it's smartphone compatible, and we really recommend people go there to see whether or not something can be put in your recycling cart. Next one. Sorry, I needed a little water. So besides our curbside program, we also have a free junk pickup program, which is great if you've got like an old mattress or sofa or something. We're really trying to keep people from just putting these out on the curb in hopes that somebody will come along. Sorry, given that that makes sort of a blight problem. And so this is free, and you just have to call your recycling hauler and arrange for it to be picked up. And then in terms of household hazardous waste, like batteries and light bulbs and paint and pesticides and so forth, the county runs a household hazardous waste drop-off program. And you just put those items in your trunk and take them to the drop-off site, and you don't even have to get out of your car. You pop the trunk and they come out, and they're, you know, wearing all the protective gear they need to wear in order to handle these things, and then they'll get disposed of properly. And then in terms of organics, we also have a yard trimmings program. So you can take all of your yard trimmings and put them out in the street, and they'll get composted at a place in Gilroy. And then you may have been hearing about this new law in California called SB 1383. And that's to divert food waste, because food waste in a landfill breaks down anaerobically, which means it in the absence of oxygen, and creates methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. So now jurisdictions are required to divert food waste and organics from the landfill to prevent that from happening. And in San Jose, we've been in compliance with this law since before it was a law, because any organics that people put in their garbage cans are diverted or taken out at the dirty MRF that I mentioned before. And those too go down to Gilroy and are turned into compost as well. So people in San Jose don't need to do anything different from what they've been doing all along. That food waste will get diverted and won't go to the landfill. But, and then the compost is used back in the community. And soil that has compost on it is potentially healthier soil than soil that doesn't have it, which means that it can better sequester carbon. And we need healthy soil everywhere. So we really encourage people to compost in their backyards, and then use that compost in their yards so that we can improve soil health everywhere. So next one. I think we can just skip these two. I know that I'm supposed to be doing 12, and I've already really talked about these. Basically, you don't have to do anything different in terms of food waste. So if this has piqued your interest, you're welcome to subscribe to our newsletter, which is called The Loop, and the URL is right there. Maybe we can get that put into the chat as well. And there's just all sorts of articles that we publish every month about different parts of the garbage and recycling program. So I think that that's about it. Oh, I know, there is one more after that, Rushton. So basically, actually, I think there's a couple more. So if you want to stop waste, the best place to do that is, you know, when you buy, and, you know, you can look in your garbage can and see what are you throwing out, and that might inform your purchases. And so some of the things that we've done is, my husband and I, we have the reusable cutlery and the reusable straws and napkins, and we keep those in our car for when we're traveling, and we use those instead of the plastic that we would get with takeout. And sorry, a friend of mine, when she goes to her butcher, she's arranged with them to take her own containers so that she doesn't end up with his disposable packaging and so forth. And next one. There's stores that you can take your empty containers to where they have bulk shampoo, conditioner, and so forth, and you can fill those up and just never get another plastic container. So anyway, I think that's about it now.
All right. Well, thank you, Linden. We are, I think, getting geared up to pepper you with some questions about what can and can't be recycled. I'm excited about that. But thank you again for taking time. I want to introduce the people we have on the recording. So if you are prepared, when I call your name, go ahead and wave at the camera. That would be great. Three guests joining us today. We have in Germany, Anne. Anne, thank you for joining us. Heather, who is in Mexico, but is part of the Rotary Club of Eugene Metropolitan. We have Melissa, who's in Hawaii and part of the Rotary E-Club of Hawaii. And from our club, we have Rory Olson in Texas, and Sarah Tuberty in Pennsylvania, and me in California. So thank you all for being here. First question comes from Sarah. What's your experience with compostable single-use products? How helpful are these?
I think that they're helpful. You can, in San Jose, you don't put those in in the recycling cart. That would be, so plastic number 7, you know, the chasing arrow symbol with the number in it. Plastic number 7 is the other category, and that can include compostables and biodegradable plastic. That's the one kind of number 7 that we don't take. Rushton, I'm going to get a throat lozenge. I'll be right back. It's right here.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So for our team, how many of you have stuff ready to kind of show? And we'll have those good. All right, because Linden, we are gearing up.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I'll start with Heather. And Heather, go ahead and unmute and describe what you've got in hand.
So before I came back to Mexico, there's so much plastic waste here and almost nothing is recyclable. So I've got my, these guys magnetize. So I take those with me. They're always in my purse and everything. But I'm wondering, some of those, you know, they're made from bamboo or different materials. Are those actually getting recycled? I think that's the question we have in a lot of different areas, that it goes in the recycle bin, but does it actually get recycled?
It really depends, I think, on the jurisdiction. And it depends, again, on whether or not it's clean. I was in a neighborhood association meeting once, and the neighborhood association spanned 2 cities. And so I spoke about what happens on the San Jose side. And then the guy from the hauler spoke about what happens on the, I think it was on the Campbell side. And he was like, no, you need to rinse these out. You need so I think the cleanliness thing is sort of universal. It's not just a San Jose thing. But bamboo, if it was in San Jose, if that got thrown in the garbage, then it would probably end up in Gilroy to get composted.
Got it. All right. Got several items for you here. All right. So boom, right? We got a glass. So the glass jar, certainly recyclable. And then there's this metal thing that has, it looks like, you know, kind of a little wax or maybe plastic piece that seals in it.
Right.
Does that make this not recyclable?
No, that's still recyclable.
Okay. And then for loads of people around the world, they know this is recyclable. This has no little symbol on it, so.
Right, and it used to be in San Jose that wasn't. If you keep that on the bottle, then it will get recycled.
Oh,
now,
and that goes for this little plastic piece as well.
Yeah, but if it doesn't, if it just goes in on its own, it's so tiny, it's going to fall through, and it's going to end up in the landfill.
So the cap would need to stay on the plastic bottle.
That would be optimal.
Here is a piece of packaging that had some wonderful chocolate in it. All right. And this is paper, but it's got this kind of plastic piece with it as well. should I assume that that makes the entire thing recyclable, not recyclable? What?
That's a good question. I think if you want to be sort of an Uber recycler, separate the plastic from the cardboard and then recycle the cardboard.
So,
and then the plastic would go in your garbage.
right. And if you get a mailing, like a piece of junk mail that has like a plastic film over an address,
Mhm.
same thing?
I'm told by my compatriots who run the program that you don't have to separate those.
Okay. This kind of thing, like Amazon mailers, a lot of them have like little symbols on them that say recycle where you recycle plastic bags. So in front of Safeway, there's like a thing that you can say, all right, here are plastic bags. Can the Amazon plastic bag containers go in with the plastic bags that are like grocery bag plastic bags?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay. All right. And finally, no small number of Starbucks fans in the room. All right. So this, all right. So this seems perfectly recyclable. It's got a little symbol on it, things like this. This, if it's kind of okay down there, can this go in paper recycling?
Sadly, no.
Ah,
It's got a plastic liner on it,
got it.
not
Got it, okay.
recyclable. So on the cap though, what's the number on the plastic cap?
I think it's a little hard to see, but I think it's a 5, maybe. Wait, nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. 5.
Recyclable.
Got it. All right. And then any plastic that just doesn't have a symbol on it at all. Garbage?
Yeah, that's plastic film.
Right.
Plastic film is not recyclable, period.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
the tangler.
Sarah, I think, has a question about an item as well.
Yes, I was thinking of something like a candle, like it's glass, but then it sort of has the remnants of the candle bits on the inside. Sometimes when you burn through all these candles, there still will be a little bit of a candle residue. Best place on these guys?
I don't think that's not going to fly.
Okay.
So I'm looking it up. And if you all want, you can go to sanjoserecycles.org too, and let's see what it says.
Which will essentially tell people whether the item in question can be recycled in San Jose, which leads you to be able to ask a better question for your own jurisdiction. Is that?
Yeah. And I mean, if you got the wax out of the candle, or I'm sorry, out of the glass jar, then the glass jar could go in the recycling, but the candle itself can't.
Gotcha.
That goes in the garbage.
So Melissa, a member of our sister club, Rotary Club of Hawaii, has a question.
I'm just curious because, in Hawaii, there are so many townhouse and condo associations. In San Jose, because I know here I've been kind of upset because, we have just big garbage bins, right? That we just dump everything in. And because I'm just told that if your association doesn't set something up, then you just put it all in there. In San Jose, do they abide by that too, even all the different associations?
Yeah, all of the associations.
Okay, I think we're kind of
the garbage in a recycling bin. Sorry?
Okay, I think we're very behind here because then on the flip side, I've been told, well, it's okay to just put it in there because it'll all go to H power. What is H power exactly? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
It sounds like, are they taking all of that and doing a waste to energy thing?
Yeah,
but
I'm wondering but doesn't that cause further pollution of the air?
It can. It sort of depends on, I mean, in Hawaii, they've got to abide by the Clean Air Act, right? And so hopefully they've got, stuff on there to capture that pollution before it's sent out into the air. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, waste to energy is not the first thing that you want to do with waste. You know, you want to reduce waste so that you don't generate it in the first place, and then you want to divert as much of it as you can. And you want to buy products that have recycled material in them so that there's a market for all that stuff we put in our recycling carts.
Thank you.
Good. One more question in. Heather in Tlaquepaque.
So this is probably a pipe dream, but is there perhaps an online global resource? So if you're traveling somewhere, or, you know, you're in whatever jurisdiction, whatever part of the country, whatever part of the world, that you could maybe go to and say, well, what about my little paper bag, or, you know, the cardboard thing on the Starbucks?
No.
But it would be
I don't
cool,
think so.
right?
I mean, there's just so much variability all over the world. I don't think that there's anything that's universal. I think the thing that would come closest to that would just be, you know, source reduction. Just like you have your reusable utensils or whatever, just whatever you can do to not generate the waste in the first place. And only buy the things that you need. And when you do buy them, buy durable things that you don't have to replace in a month or a year or whatever, so that we're all just leaving a smaller footprint on the environment.
So Linden, in the recycling community, this is the second last question. In the recycling community, is there kind of a thing where, you know, if everybody just understood this one or two things, right, we would have so many fewer problems related to waste and recycling? Is there something kind of in that space where it's like, if everybody just knew this?
Well, I think in terms of recycling, it's the making sure that it's recyclable in your jurisdiction, and then making sure that it's not contaminated or going to contaminate other things. Those are the main things on that side. But then on the other side is what I was saying a moment ago in terms of just waste reduction on the front end, just figuring out what you can do to make it so that you generate less waste on the back end. There was a professor at San Jose State named Frank Schiavo who created a lifestyle for himself such that in a year he would generate a bag of garbage about this big. That was it, you know? And so he like fought with the city about, I shouldn't have to have a garbage cart. I shouldn't have to pay for one because I'm not creating garbage. He actually made it onto 60 Minutes. He was such a guru of all of this. So I think that those are the main things. Just create less in the first place, and whatever you create, manage it according to your jurisdiction's program.
Well, Lyndon, I think that serves as a great final comment. I will say to all of you who are joining us, perhaps watching the recording, that let us know you were here. There's an attendance form a little farther down that'll generate an email you can use to make up a missed meeting for your own club if you're a Rotarian, and leave a message for us in the forum. We thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will join us for future recordings. If you'd like to be on our mailing list of friends of the E-Club of Silicon Valley, just let us know. You can reach out via the contact on our site. We appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.